And my wife, on your way, Jerusalem, stand peace, Jerusalem. Blessing of the Sabbath. Barakatah Yahweh, Bashan, Yehoshay, Asheray, Nathan Manawe, Hashabat, Bashalawam, Thawada, Amen. Blessed are Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, that gives to us the Sabbath in peace. Thank you so big. The Alim Asheray Machad, Psalms 121. Anya Harayam Ayim Ye Oh Harayam Ayan Yabawa Azariye Yabawa Mayahawa Shashab Shemayam Warataza La Yanathan Lamawat Regalia Yela Yanawam Shashramarka Hanela Yanawam Wala Yeshan Shashrama Yeshrelib Yehawah Shemaria Yehawah Tazalib Ayo Yem Yed Yawamam Hashemash La Hakaya Wayarak La Balayala Yahweh Yashamaria Makab Rai Yashama Napashya Yahweh Yashama Hawalakya Wabuaya My Thab Wa Aid I Wulam Basham Yehoshua for what Amen.
Psalm 121. I will lift up my eyes unto the hills, from whence cometh my help. My help cometh from the Lord which made heaven and earth. He will not suffer thy foot to be moved. He that keepeth thee will not slumber. Behold, he that keepeth Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is thy keeper. The Lord is thy shade upon thy right hand. The sun shall not smite thee by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord shall preserve thee from all evil. He shall preserve thy soul. The Lord shall preserve thy going out and thy coming in from this time forth and even forevermore. Amen.
Amen. Shema Yasharala, hero Israel. Shema Yasharala, Yahweh Eloheinu Yahweh Echad Shemai Yisrael Yahweh Eloheinu Yahweh Echad Shemai Yisrael Yahweh Eloheinu Yahweh Echad.
Deuteronomy 6:4. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. Amen.
Amen. Bapala Yahweh, the Lord's Prayer. Abiyanawe Shabbat Shemayim Kodash Hayye Shamke Yahweh Malakwaka Taba'ai Ratazawanke Hayye Aisha Baratazak Bashemayim Upon the Nawe Lacham Yawam Zed wasalak nawe kabawak nawe kasalak nawe kabawak nawe wala abiyar nawe oh nasayawan abo hawashai nawe barai kaye laka amalakwa wa ala wa thaparat wa walam aman.
Matthew 6:9. After this manner therefore pray, Our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
Amen. Ha'aisha Ramatazawaf, the Ten Commandments. La'ad, Yahayat, La'kad, Alahayim, Acharim, Alpanyat, La'ad, Thaishad, La'kad, Paso, Wala'ad, Thaibadam, La'ad, Talakwaka, Shamwa, Yahweh, Alahayaka, Lashawat, Zakar, Ath, Hayawam, Hashabath, Laqadashwad, Kabad, Abiyaka, Wa Amaka, La'ab, Taratazak, La'ab, Tana'ab, La'ab, Taganab, La'ab, Thainad, Shakur, La'ab, Tachamad, Ko, Asherat, Lara'aika, Aman.
Exodus 22. I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image, or any likeness of anything that is in the heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them. For I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless that taketh his name in vain. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea and all that in them is, and rested the seventh day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and holiday. Honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his ox, nor his ass, nor anything that is thy neighbor's. Amen.
Amen. Yeshabwa, be seated. Barakatha Yahweh by Shemi Hawashai Asharan the now Parya Gapin Tuada Aman. La Yahweh by Shemi Hawashai Af Yashra. English translation. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai that gives to us the fruit of the vine. Thank you, so be it to Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai with Israel. Amadwa, Panyawa, Yerushlim, stand and face Jerusalem. Barakatha Yahweh, Haggadah, Rakawam, Abiyah, Wanawa, Aliyawan, Malak, Shamayim, Warataza, Waka, the Barium, Kayayam, Wakam, Hamashiach, Mayahawa, Arawanawa, Ahabnawa, Apala, Yawa Aitiza, Yahawasha, Zakarnawa, Yahawa, Bartazawan, Ainka, Yasha'ala, Azarnawa, Bana, Wasap, Yasha'ala, Oh, Nanawa, Yen, Aita, Kayawamyam, Makwadam, Babakusha, Shalak, Micah Allah, Wataz Wadak, Alahayam, La, Maganawa, Raparnawa, Washama, Ionawa, Bakur, Shalak, Haruka, Shao, Yawashai, Lanawa, Lamadnawa, Rabiam, Kakamai, Tabawana, Wada Ike, Shao, the Barka, Basham, Yahawashai, the Wada, Them Yad, Waiwalam, Maman. English translation. Blessed are you, Yahweh, the great, merciful, mighty, terrible, most high power, King of heaven and earth and all things living, and also the anointed from Yahweh, our Lord, our friend, the wonderful counselor, Yahweh Shai. Remember, Yahweh, favorably your people Israel. Help us build and gather Israel most high, we beg you, right now, like the days of old. Please send Michael and the righteous powers to protect us, heal us, and watch over us. Mainly send the spirit of Yahweh Shai to us, to teach us much wisdom, knowledge, and understanding of thy word. In the name of Yahweh Shai, thank you, always and forever, so be it. Repeat the Hebrew only. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai that gives to us the law. Barakatha Yahweh, Ba'ashim Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Natan Lanawa, Hatawarat. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai that gives to us light to see. Barakatha Yahweh, Ba'ashim Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Natan Lanawa, Awar, Lara Awat. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai that gives to us the ram's horn to call the people. Barakatha Yahweh, Ba'ashim Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Natan Lanawa, Quran, Ha'ayah, La Korah, Ha'aim. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai that gives to us the olive oil to anoint Israel. Barakatha Yahweh, Ba'ashim Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Natan Lanawa, Hasheman, Zayath, Lamashak, Yasha'ala, Yeshabwa. You see that? So, Shalom Yasharallah.
Shalom.
All right, so shalom everybody here in the Philly School. Shalom everybody watching us on live stream. And shalom everybody listening in on teleconference. Welcome to Ha Yasharallah Kanas, or the Congregation of Israel, where we teach that the so-called Black, Latin, and Native Americans are the 12 tribes of Israel. Once lost, now found. And that we fall into a lower state, politically, economically, even religiously, because we broke the laws of God, found a Bible given to us by Moses. And that we come out of this lower state that we fall into by turning back to these commandments we broke, by following Jesus Christ as our example, who did no sin, neither was guile found in his mouth, as written by Peter in 1 Peter 2:21. So one way we do that is by keeping the Sabbath day holy. Today we come together to keep Sabbath service, as we regularly do, where we go through particular reading on the Lord's Sabbath, which we know every week comes in from Friday sundown to Saturday sundown. This week's reading is going to be in Esdras, in the Apocrypha, originally a part of the 1611 King James Version. We'll be reading chapter 2 and chapter 3. First Esdras chapter 2 and chapter 3 is going to be our reading for today. My name is Nabia Zerubbabel. I'll be doing the service today. And for your records, you just write down that today's date is June the 9th, 2018, according to the Gregorian calendar. And according to our Hebrew calendar, it would be the 3rd month and the 26th day. So you can put that header on your paper as you take notes for what we read through today. So now this is First Esdras chapter 2. So First Esdras chapter 2 in verse 1 reads, in the first year of Cyrus, king of the Persians, that the word of the Lord might be accomplished, that he had promised by the mouth of Jeremy, right? So now we're talking about Cyrus, king of Persia, right? He was the head of the Persians, and he would be the king prophesied aforetime that will be the one to depose Nebuchadnezzar from power, right? Because he would be the one to be in power under the Babylonians, but then he would take out him and his son and take over reign afterwards, right? So I got a Zondervan Compact Bible Dictionary. We'll read a couple entries, since we're going to be reading about a couple different kings as we go through our reading today. And of course, when we see Jeremy here, we know it ties into the prophecy written of old time. This Jeremy is just another way of writing Jeremiah, right? That name Jeremy comes from Jeremiah. So now this is Cyrus in the Zondervan Compact Bible Dictionary. So this is on page 121 of the Zondervan. On Cyrus. And it reads, with the rise of Cyrus, began the renowned Persian Empire, which was to continue unto the coming of Alexander the Great. Cyrus himself announced his genealogy. Quote, I am Cyrus, king of the hosts, the great king, king of Babylon, king of Sumer and Akkad, son of Cambyses, the king of Anshan, the grandson of Cyrus, the grandson of Thespis, the king of Anshan. End quote. In this same inscription, Cyrus proceeds to relate how the city of Babylon opened its gates to him without resistance, thus confirming the biblical account recorded in Daniel 5, when Darius, acting as vice-regent for Cyrus, took the city of Babylon in the name of Cyrus the Great. Then it says, Cyrus entered Babylon on October 29, 539 BC, and presented himself in the role of the liberator of the people. We're going to read about that as we go through the reading today in Esdras, in the scriptures. He allowed the images of the gods to be transported back to their original cities and instituted a kindly policy of repatriation for captive peoples. Policies of moderation naturally extended to the Hebrews, whom he encouraged to return to Judea to rebuild their temple, and to make some references to some scriptures that we're actually going to touch on today too. In 2 Chronicles 36, along with Ezra chapter 1. But we'll quote those as we read. In the last sentence says, Isaiah refers to Cyrus as the anointed one. I think a couple Sabbaths ago we read that verse where Isaiah makes reference to him before he even came into power, right? Because when Isaiah was a prophet, it was a couple of kings before the Babylonian captivity, a couple of centuries even, right? Isaiah was contemporary with King Hezekiah, right? Because the events of the Babylonian captivity followed up by this exile, which is Ezra's time, that wouldn't happen until many years later. Yeah, exactly. So it just shows that when we talk about the Bible, we know it's many things, right? We know it's a book of law, book of history, right? A book of wisdom and knowledge, and definitely a book of prophecy, as we're touching on today. But oftentimes we talk about the Bible or mention the Bible, first thing people say is, oh, I don't want to get into religion. I want to make this into a religious discussion, right? I want to talk about, pie in the sky faith. I want to talk about, real things. It just shows you just the propaganda job that's been done in the minds of the people, especially our people, but even the minds of the enemy, as far as the lies they've been taught from a young age, and their parents been taught from a young age about what this Bible is really about.
I think about that. Keep it in mind that it was during Ezra's time when we would get to the ending of Second Ezra, and we were given the history all over again because the records of things were burnt. But sometimes when we read in the Old Testament how certain names of cities and locations are mentioned in the Old Testament before the actual occurrence happened. And it's because it's hindsight now that the author is giving you the detail of what happened in the past, but he now has the understanding that this location is now, it's really Jerusalem, it's really, Mount Zion, it's really this. And you're like, well, how did Moses know that the name was going to be there? That name didn't come until David's time, right? So I'm wondering if that's the same thing with Cyrus, where it was during Ezra's time that the Most High gave the Spirit to rewrite all of the history. So what was prophesied during Isaiah's time about this king that was going to be the one chosen to allow the restoration of Israel, that he knew it was Cyrus, and he had that written there in history. Speculation is not, comprehension, because it's been done before throughout scriptures.
Oh, so you mean when Isaiah originally wrote it, he didn't write it by name?
Yeah, he didn't write it by name.
Just referred to him?
Right. The same way when Moses originally wrote those things, he didn't call it by those names. He didn't know those names.
Oh, okay.
Until Ezra came, when he rewrote it, Ezra knew those names, so the actual current cities were, and he put that in there in the writing. So now when we're reading it, it's like, oh, okay, cool. That's as if, let's say you had a grandfather, and your grandfather wrote a memoir, and the memoir is from the 30s, right? But now fast forward, you're here in this time and age, and the names of the locations changed, right? The city names changed, and now when you write it, for those who are reading it now, I'm going to call it this place, North Philly. Like, back in the day, it wasn't called North Philly, it was called something else. So for now, you put little excerpts, you keep that old ancient name in certain writings, but you'll add in North Philly, so it kind of allows it to be joined. But again, this is not confirmation, this is speculation, that possibly happened.
Interesting. Oh, and that verse they're talking about in Isaiah, I guess we can pull it and read it before we continue. That prophecy then that the Zondervan even mentioned. You can go to Isaiah. Chapter 44, verse 28. That's the last verse of Isaiah 44 and 28, and then Isaiah 45 and verse 1. Isaiah 44 and 28 to Isaiah 45 and 1. If you would just want to write that down as a reference to what we're discussing. Yeah, I see you. Oh, go ahead. I was quoting the verse.
Oh no, I'm talking about the Bible, concerning the Bible too. Like a lot of archaeologists and historians, they like to go in the Bible and verify certain events that have happened. They like to dig and find proof of it.
Right. Which also shows how grossly ignorant many of our people are, and the heathen. That they don't understand the difference between, Christian religion versus biblical scholarship, right? Which oftentimes those are two very different discussions, two different level sets as far as knowledge, as far as discourse, when it comes to questioning certain things, right? And the approach that a Bible scholar would take to answer something or to deal with something versus someone who's just dealing with the religion of Christianity, right? Or has like a doctorate of divinity, right? Even when you talk to people in other religions, like, Islam, for example, right? Islamic scholarship is very different from those involved in the Islamic religion, right? Certain things that an Islamic scholar talk about, you won't really hear from someone who's a member of the religion. It seems kind of odd that you wouldn't have both of those particular fields coming together. Sometimes it can be like night and day. So, all in all, we know Christ told us the truth shall make us free. And that's what we find in scriptures is the truth, right? It becomes all things to all men, regardless of whatever our background or interest is. The Bible has a little and a lot of something for everybody. And it's funny too, because we mentioned archaeology. I was looking at the picture, I didn't mention anything, but I guess I can show you guys on the camera. If you look in your Zondervan, you'll see here that it even has a record here. It's called the Cylinder of Cyrus, right? And when you read the caption on the Cylinder of Cyrus, it says the Cylinder of Cyrus telling of his capture of Babylon and his liberation of its captives. So you want to say, oh yeah, the Bible is written by man, it's a fairy tale. But then we talk about something like this. You look at this as a historian and as an archaeologist, you look at this as a primary source. And they look at the Bible, even the original Hebrew, as a primary source as well when it comes to records and history. But the regular person on the street, the person who grew up in the religion of Christianity or knowing about the religion of Christianity, they won't look at the Bible as a book of record. Right? They'll just see it as strictly a holy book that's totally faith-based and just filled with a bunch of stories just to motivate you, right? As opposed to actually dealing with records of persons, places, and things that actually took place. So yeah, when we go to the Cyrus cylinder and other records of other empires that were around on those same times that we interacted with in our history, they'll give that, so much more respect. Just like they give certain classics, right? Where there was Greek classics, Roman classics, right? Classics of the Persians, right? Those old records. But they'll still look at those and say, okay, yeah, these are, historical books of record. But they won't do that with the Bible. It's kind of odd. So let's continue. Second Esdras chapter 2 and verse 2 reads.
Jeremy. Top of the mountain, Jeremy.
Oh, you going to pull that? Okay.
Jeremy 25. Probably 29.
Yeah, I think it's right. It's 25. About the 70 years being accomplished.
This is Jeremiah 25, 11, 12. 13. It says, and this whole land shall be a desolation and an astonishment, and these nations shall serve the king of Babylon 70 years, of which Israel and Jerusalem is a part of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
It says, verse 12, and it shall come to pass when 70 years are accomplished, that I will punish the king of Babylon and that nation, saith Yahweh, for their iniquity in the land of the Chaldeans. I will make it a perpetual desolation. I will bring upon that land all my words which I have pronounced against it, even all that is written in this book, which Jeremiah hath prophesied against all the nations. So at the end of the 70 years was the beginning of the Persians and the Medes empire. And they were the ones who came and conquered the Babylonians and pronounced all the things that the Most High said was going to happen to all nations, keeping in mind that Israel is the central core of it. Hence the going back and forth with our kings and our counselors and things that was advising the king on what we should and shouldn't do when the Babylonian captivity came in. But they just did not only just conquer Israel, they conquered all around them. Mm-hmm. Same thing with the Persians and the Medes. They conquered all around them. So they became the predominant empire. That's why it says all these nations, all the rest of the nations, but Israel is still the central focus or the central core of that captivity that we're most focused on. Great.
Because when you're the top empire, you're not just over us, you're over everybody.
Right.
Just like we see today, you have empires that are around in tandem, then they might take turns being the predominant. Even with the Esau's empire now, you see the Brits, they had the top position at one point, and America will come into the top position afterwards, even though they're still around during the same time, ruling with each other.
Mm-hmm. What's interesting when you read up in that same 25th chapter, that's where Jeremiah was advising Israel that listen, it's inevitable. Go into this captivity because the Most High, it was the Most High's will that we're going to go into the captivity, the sins of our nation. But still, you're going to have sons and daughters. You're not going to be like utterly wasted Like, you know, you're still going to go there, and after this period of time, you'll come out, right? And then within that captivity, that's where you read that verse we talk about, pray for the peace of the king or what have you. Like, what are we talking about here? But it's mainly for us, so that we would be able to do the things and sustain ourselves. The same thing right now. Like, we still want to be able to do the things that we're doing right now and sustain ourselves. It's very much of a contrast to what happened during the times of the apostles, where they weren't as liberal to allow them to go out and speak and teach and do certain things. Hence, when you read in the Acts of the Apostles, they were beaten and all kind of things that was happening to them. Now it's a little bit lightened on our end. We're not, like it tells you in Hebrews, we're not striving against the blood like they did. So the captivities were captivities, but some are a little bit more harsh than others. But the Most High said He always provide a way if you did what was asked of us.
Some of us try to fight, right?
Huh?
I don't want to go into captivity. We want to fight.
Right. And that's what happened to them during prior to the actual Babylonian captivity coming in. They didn't listen. So the Most High had the Babylonians come in and like unrush the show. Like, all right,
You want to go to Egypt for help, you know?
yeah, all right. Told you. It's a hard way.
Was it, I think, at the end of 2 Kings, it even talks about the king Zedekiah and his entourage. They tried to escape outside of the city with it. They laid siege on. They got a certain distance, and then Babylonians caught whiff to them trying to escape, and then routed them on their way trying to escape, and then rounded them up. And we know what happens next. You know, they grabbed them. They had their judgment, their court, and they killed Zedekiah, King Zedekiah, his sons, right before his eyes, and then plucked his own eyes out. So it's like, when it comes to history, we talk about how other empires have their records. You know, sometimes they'll try to paint it up a certain way, like, oh yeah, we were in power, we did this and that, but our history, all the good, the bad, and the ugly. Right? No sugarcoating. If we did right, it's recorded. If we did wrong, it's recorded. You know, if we won, it's recorded. If we lost, part of L, it's recorded. You know, so that was a serious L, so to speak. Yeah, that's at the end of 2 Kings when you read that. So yeah, for this section, as we go through it, you can just write these verses down, going all the way down to about verse 15. It's going to be, it parallels what we see in 2 Chronicles 36. 2 Chronicles 36, 22 to 23. You just write it down, because more or less says the same thing. 2 Chronicles 36, verses 22 to 23, you can write down as a reference. Also, you can write down Ezra in the 66 books, or EZRA.
What was the 2 Chronicles again?
Chapter 36, verses 22 to 23. It's at the end of 2 Chronicles. Looks like towards the end of that book. And then also Ezra chapter 1, verses 1 through 11. You see that reflects the same history that we're going to read in 1 Esdras chapter 2 as we go down. Remember, as we don't know, Esdras in the Apocrypha and Ezra, spelling is different, but it's referring to the same figure. It's same descendant of the house of Aaron. When you read his lineage, it's just spelled differently here versus somewhere else. As we read down, we're going to see certain kings' names are spelled differently too. Certain rulers' names are spelled differently coming from the Greek versus coming from the Hebrew. So reading on, it says in verse 2. So first Esdras chapter 2, verse 2. The Lord raised up the spirit of Cyrus, the king of the Persians, and he made proclamation through all his kingdom, also by writing. And that's going to go into the record of what this King Cyrus said. So for verse 2, you won't get it, but just write it down for verse 2. Job chapter 12, verse 23. Job 12 and 23. Also, Proverbs chapter 21 and verse 1. Proverbs 21 and 1, and also Daniel chapter 2 and verse 21. Once again, Daniel 2 and 21. All those verses is going into Heavenly Father being the one responsible for raising up, breaking down kingdoms, right? It's in the power of his hand. Like we read, Jeremy was made a prophet unto all the nations, even though he said the focus was us, but he prophesied against everybody, right? The burden of Dedan, burden of Babylon, right? The burden of Damascus, which is the capital city of Syria. The burden of whoever else, any other nation, right? Their prophecy is written here too. Remember, the Most High, he created all nations, but he's dealing with his people, the nation of Israel. Okay. People's past and present and future you find right here in this one book. Yeah, those verses is going into the Most High being the one that moves these different kings into power. And as we're going to read, we even see some of them even acknowledge the power of our God. You see Cyrus being one of those rare kings that acknowledge the power of our God doing these things, right? Him being responsible for even his rise to power over the Babylonians. So first Esdras chapter 2, verse 3, saying, thus saith Cyrus, king of the Persians, the Lord of Israel, the Most High Lord, have made me king of the whole world. See, he knows it's his time. Verse 4, and commanded me to build him an house at Jerusalem in Jewry, right? Or where we are to dwell, right, in the land. If therefore there be any of you that are of his people, let the Lord, even his Lord, be with him. Let him go up to Jerusalem that is in Judea, and build the house of the Lord of Israel. For he is the Lord that dwelleth in Jerusalem. It says, whosoever then dwell in the places about, let them help him. Those, I say, that are his neighbors, with gold and with silver, with gifts, with horses, and with cattle and other things, which have been set forth by vow for the temple of the Lord at Jerusalem. So he's even commanding those that are neighboring us, border countries, and the nations that are there, to give us the resources and the support that we need to continue this enterprise of rebuilding, of reconstruction of the temple, right, in the city. But as we read on, let's see if that's honored, right? It says in verse 8, then the chief of the families of Judea and the tribes of Benjamin stood up, the priests also and the Levites, all they whose mind the Lord had moved to go up and to build an house for the Lord at Jerusalem. So the Most High moving us to go back to rebuild, right? The southern kingdom, as we see mentioned here, right? Judah, Benjamin, Levi, being moved to go back to rebuild that which was destroyed by the previous ruler. It says in verse 9, and they that dwelt round about them had helped them in all things, silver and gold, with horses and cattle, and with very many free gifts of a great number whose minds were stirred up thereto. King Cyrus also brought forth the holy vessels which Nebuchadnezzar, you'll see it spelled Nebuchadnezzar too, but it's the same figure, had carried away from Jerusalem and had set up in his temple of idols. And here's some other prophecy that you read about. You can link this verse 10 with 1 Esdras chapter 1 and verse 41, where it's made mention of Nebuchadnezzar being the king that took it. He was one that was in power that took it in the beginning, right? So 1 Esdras chapter 1 and verse 41. But as far as the prophecy of this happening, this happened during Isaiah's time too, another prophet. You read about that history in 2 Kings chapter 20, verses 12 to 19. Once again, 2 Kings 20, 12 to 19. You can also write Isaiah 39, verses 1 to 8. Isaiah 39, verses 1 to 8. Where, once again, Hezekiah was the king at that time, and you had men from Babylon came to visit. This is how he showed them all their treasure, right? Gave them a tour, right? And then Isaiah said, you know, who are these people? What is this? King Hezekiah explained to him. He said, the time will come when what? These Babylonians are going to come back and take all these things. Nothing shall be left. And then King Hezekiah said, great is the word of the Lord which you have spoken, talking to Isaiah. Said, at least I'll see good during my days. So, you know, even though it was bad news, he still acknowledged it because he knew Isaiah was a prophet of the Most High. It wasn't like other wicked kings where they hear something they don't like and they want to say, oh, throw him in a dungeon, right? Or lash him, right? Or smite him for that. He acknowledged that prophecy. So Hezekiah pretty much taking note of, man, I guess those sons that come after me, they're not going to follow my example, right? At least all of them. Remember, after Hezekiah, you just had Josiah after him, which was, I think, his great-grandson, sit on the throne, if I'm not mistaken. Or maybe either his great-grandson or his grandson. After Hezekiah, the rest of them just went off. Did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord. And it caused the whole southern kingdom to crumble. The prophecy was there during Isaiah about the Babylonians coming in before it even happened. Centuries before it even took place. Second Kings. Yeah, 2 Kings chapter 20, verses 12 to 19. You got the one in Isaiah? Yeah. Which those two things are saying the same thing. So back in 1 Esdras chapter 2, let's read on in verse 11. Now when Cyrus, king of the Persians, had brought them forth, he delivered them to Mithridates, his treasurer, and by him they were delivered unto Sennacherib, or rather Sennacherib, the governor of Judea, right? So you'll see this spelled as Sheshbazzar in Ezra chapter 1 and verse 8. For verse 12, you'll see that same mention here, but the spelling is a little different, that's all. But it's referring to the same figure. Sheshbazzar in Ezra 1 and 8 is the same as Sennacherib or Sennabassar here in 1 Esdras 2. Just being translated from different languages, but it's the same name. Ezra 1 and 8, which is like I said, the whole first chapter of Ezra is actually lining up with First Esdras chapter 2 here in the Apocrypha. But Ezra 1 and 8 is what connects with this verse 12. Reading on in 13, it says, and this was the number of them. Now, once again, we're going to go into the Bible, which is a history book and a book of records. There's many records that are here, right, that can be correlated, cross-referenced with other primary sources of other records of other nations at that time that were recording history as well for their own people, right? Like we mentioned the Cyrus cylinder, for example, right? Even had a record or a primary source called the Nebuchadnezzar Chronicle that detailed these events as well, as far as Nebuchadnezzar's rise to power, right? Like you said, they know. But with that, they'll say, oh, let's cross-reference it with produce, see how it aligns, and they'll find that alignment. So it says, verse 13 again, and this was the number of them, 1,000 golden cups, and 1,000 of silver, censers of silver 29, vials of gold 30, and of silver 2,410, and 1,000 other vessels 14. So all the vessels of gold and of silver which were carried away were 5,403 score and 9, right? So much treasure that we had that was plundered by the enemy. But now we see in the Most High's mercy, while he had it taken from us, he said, as a correction, I'm going to allow you to go back in the land to do things right. And the same way I can raise up a king to take you out, I can raise up another to set you back up. Because I want you to truly acknowledge that I'm the one, really, I'm that king that rules over all, right? When you humble yourself before me, I'll pave the way for you. Because remember, the kings of the empires, back then and now, they're all just the Most High's playthings anyway, right? They're just little props on a table that the Most High just moves around to do what he wants when he wants it, right? So that's the power the Most High has. It's like that's why you'll see him referred to different nations. They'll say he'll put the hooks in their jaws, for example, right? So for us, when we see different nations in their glory, like we see, the Western countries or the Eastern countries now that have their wealth, their riches, their armies, right? We look at that in such a, we'll look at them as far as, how glorious they are, how much power they have. But as far as the Most High is concerned, they're just a beast of burden to him, right? They're just a horse that he rides on, or an ox that he sets out in the field to till the ground. That's how they are to the Most High, right? So he's over them, not the other way around. So reading on, it says in verse 15, these were brought back by Sennabassar together with them of the captivity from Babylon to Jerusalem. So we're bringing them back to the holy city. And everything you read from here on down to the end of this chapter, you'll see it parallel Ezra chapter 4. So it's a big link, but like I said, you read them side by side, you'll see they share similar details. So from this verse 16 down to 30, which is the last verse in this chapter of 1 Esdras 2, you can link it with Ezra in the 66 books, chapter 4, verses 7 all the way to 24. So once again, chapter 2, 16 to 30 of 1 Esdras. Link it with Ezra chapter 4, 7 to 24. Let's continue. So 1 Esdras 2 and 16. But in the time of Artaxerxes, king of the Persians, which you'll see that spelling different in the 66 books, like in Esther, for example, you'll see it. It says Ahasuerus, right? But it's the same as Artaxerxes. Like I said, one is just English translated from the Hebrew. The other one is English translated from the Greek. for the person of the same name. So let's see what the Zondervan has to say about Artaxerxes, who was in power during this time, who came into power later, because as the records take place, you know, we have successions of different kings that came into power during and after Cyrus's time. Now, this is in the Zondervan Compact Bible Dictionary. This is on page 57. So, Zondervan, page 57, on Artaxerxes. And it says, proper name or possibly title for several kings of Persia, or they shared the name. 2 or possibly 3. Persian kings are so named in the Old Testament. The pseudo-Smerdis of Ezra, and it references chapter 4, 7 to 23, what we just quoted earlier. And it says, Longimanus, in quotes, who granted the request of Ezra, refers to chapter 7, verse 6, and Nehemiah chapter 2, 1 to 8, to go to Jerusalem. Possibly another king who reigned for 516 BC. And it references Ezra chapter 6 and verse 14. All right, so a little background on this Artaxerxes or in the Zondervan, page 57.
Reading Esdras, it does. This is Artaxerxes and Artaxerxes. Right.
Mm-hmm. All right, so let's continue on. I'll read 16 again. But in the time of Artaxerxes, king of the Persians, Elymas and Mithridates and Tibelius and Rethumus and Beelphethmus and Simelius, the secretary, with others that were in commission with him, dwelling in Samaria and other places. Because remember, when we read in the 2 Kings 17, we read about the Babylonians taking over Samaria, right? Taking over that region of Israel and putting their own people in there. So when the Persians and the Medes came into power afterwards, you know, much of that region was then translated over to them. Now it belongs to them now. And they put their own people there, right? Or sometimes they would leave the people that were already had it, and then they would just report to the new leaders, the new nation that would come into power. And other places wrote unto him against them that dwell in Judea and Jerusalem these letters following.
So I wanted to read that piece. Here it doesn't go to. But when you read it in Ezra 4 and 2, they were rebuilding these men that we speak of. It says, then they came to Zerubbabel, to the chief of the fathers, and said unto them, let us build with you, for we seek your God, as ye do. And we do sacrifice unto him since the days of Esarhaddon, king of Asher, which brought us up hither. So here are these heathen that are now coming up saying they want to help us rebuild because they worship and sacrifice to the Most High in the same manner as we do. But like you said, this goes back to as 2 Kings 17, when they put these men or these nations, these heathen, into the land. And then they brought some of the priests to go and teach them about our customs and how to worship and serve the Most High. But when you read throughout 2 Kings, it lets you know that they was saying they feared the Most High, but they were still worshiping their idols. They were still following after paganism and things in the land. But they're using this as a means to be able to become one with us and say, hey, let us come and help them rebuild. But they really had no sincerity or intentions of really helping us rebuild. They just kind of wanted to come in and see what was going on and keep a watchful eye, because like you said, they're now living there. So now all of a sudden here come the real inhabitants of the land, the real inheritors of the land coming back, and they're like, hold on, like if we let them continue to do this, then they're gonna push us out. Like what's going on here? Right? So they tried to see if they could fit their way in, but they was like, nah, we don't want your help, right? I'll just read the third verse and then I go back. It says, but Zerubbabel and Jeshua and the rest of the chief of the fathers of Israel said unto them, ye have nothing to do with us to build an house unto our power. But we ourselves together will build unto the Lord power of Israel, as King Cyrus, the king of Persia, have commanded us. Right? So that was their way of saying, look, we don't want your help. We don't need your help to build and restore and worship our God, not your God, our God. And if you want any confirmation of it, the king is the one who gave us this authority to do it. Right. So you gotta step off. Right? So after that, then they got concerned, vexed, and about to use the same tactic that Haman did during the time of Esther, when he went to the king to conspire against Israel and say, hey, look, we need to, the letters and everything is drawn up. These guys is not all good. Do you know what they've done in the past? So forth and so on. So here's that tactic coming again, the conspiracy.
Yes, sir. And this is beautiful, because this is Psalms 83 in action. We like to quote it all the time, right? When we go to camp about things going on now, but you see with the heathen back then, it was the same story. Because the blessing and the curse of Deuteronomy 28 and Leviticus 26, it tells you when we do the right thing, we're the head, they're the tail. When we do the wrong thing, they're the head and we're the tail, right? Of the governing body of who's in charge. So this whole thing of, coexist and, all religions, all peoples together with each other, ruling together, that whole idea, it's a farce. It's always going to be one nation that has the predominant position over others throughout history, and that's no different now. So don't believe the lies that the heathen that are in power now try to push. And try to push this whole, mixing and mingling of different nations and say, yeah, we all have a stake in this dream that is America today. But no, you look at the distribution of wealth in land and resources and assets. You see that, no, it's very clear who the dominant empire is now, right? Regardless of whatever they want to tell us or whatever they want to push on us through books, movies, music, commercials. So don't believe that hype. So back to First Esdras chapter 2. Continue on. Verse 17 now. Let's see the letter. Right? It says, the King Artaxerxes, our Lord, thy servants, Rathumus, the story writer, and Semelius, the scribe, and the rest of their council, and the judges that are in Silo, Syria, and Unice. 18. Let it now known, Be it now known to the Lord the King that the Jews that are come up from you to us, being come into Jerusalem, that rebellious and wicked city, do build the marketplaces and repair the walls of it, and do lay the foundation of the temple. Right? So it's like you were saying, right? They're telling, they're running and telling the King Artaxerxes about what's going on. You see the things that they mentioned, right? The temple and the marketplaces, because they know, just like for them, right? That strength of the empire we know comes from what they buy and sell, right? What they trade, and they know that the temple is like our center of gravity, right? Where when that thing is built up and it's running efficiently, that's a reflection of the people of the Most High running efficiently, right? So these are key things for us to reestablish ourselves as a nation. And they're taking note of it and mentioning this to Artaxerxes. 19, now if this city and the walls thereof be made up again, they will not only refuse to give tribute, but also, so once again, putting forth that bad report, right? As they see us coming back into power, and it's like you said, making them uneasy, right? Making them nervous. And for as much as the things pertaining to the temple are now in hand, we think it meet or right not to neglect such a matter, right? So don't just take this thing lightly that they're doing. 21, but to speak unto our Lord the King, to entreat that if it be thy pleasure, really about what they want to do. They want to make with their will, they want to get the king to side with what they want. It may be sought out in the books of thy fathers. Right? So go into the annals, go into their chronicles, their records. 22, and thou shalt find in the chronicles what is written concerning these things, and shall understand that that city was rebellious, troubling both kings and cities, and that the Jews were rebellious and raised always wars therein, for the which cause even this city was made desolate. So, truth and lies mixed together, right? We were ultimately rebellious against the Most High, but one of those ways that we did it was not so much, rebelling against empires. Sadly, we saw what our kings were allying themselves with neighbors like Egypt, for example, right? You read about before the northern kingdom was overthrown, we went to war with them, and then I think it was the southern kingdom, they were paired up with Assyria, and then the northern kingdom was paired up with Syria. The one is Asher, the other one is Aram, right? Two different Shemitic nations. Yeah, we war with each other, but then try to ally ourselves with the other nations. But the way they're writing the story, it's to get Artaxerxes on their side to say, yeah, they were trying to war with the other kings when they were in power. See, that's why they fell. But we know the real reason. We read the stories of the Chronicles and the Kings and Jeremiah, right? That they had a way out. They had an out if they just stopped dealing with their idols, referring to us, Southern Kingdom, Judah, Benjamin, Levi, so-called Black and Millennials. We had a way out by just what? Turning back to the Lord and not trusting in our alliance with the neighboring countries. That was sound advice, but the kings didn't take it. That's what actually happened. But they're selling the story a bit differently to Artaxerxes. I'll read 23 again. It says, and that the Jews were rebellious and raised always wars therein, for the which cause even this city was made desolate. 24, wherefore now we do declare unto thee, O Lord the King, that if this city be built again, and the walls thereof set up anew, thou shalt from henceforth have no passage unto Syria and Phoenicia, which just different spellings, but it's just talking about the east side of Syria, which we now call Lebanon, and then Phoenicia is another way of just writing Phoenicia, which is like going down into northern Africa. It's going into different regions that they had, dominion over as you expand through their empire. Which I think you read, we're going to read it as we go on. all the dominion talks about how it went from all the way to Egypt and it went all the way to India, right, as far as the expanse of their empire. So that's what's referring to when he talks about that dominion or that name. So yeah, pretty much everything above and below Israel, when you look on the map. Above and below and to the east of Israel. Since we know to the west of Israel, obviously, was the Mediterranean. So yeah, they're pretty much saying to Artaxerxes, yeah, by them coming back into power, you won't be able to have that passage to go back and forth into your dominion. 25. Then the king wrote back again to Rathimus, the story writer. Yeah, they're writing a story, all right. To Beelphethmus, to Simeleus, the scribe, and to the rest that were in commission, and dwellers in Samaria, and Syria, and Phoenicia after this manner. 26. I have read the epistle which ye have sent unto me. Therefore I command to make diligent search, and it have been found that the city was from the beginning practicing against kings. So he's doing what was proper, not just going on for hearsay, but what? Demanding that a diligent search be made. We see that even be found in our law, that anytime a matter is being brought to us at any level before any judge, right? Whether it be the judges that rule, whether it be a king, a priest, right? Anyone who have authority, you just write down these scriptures that talk about making that diligent search, because we know it's very easy. We see even Israel today will fall into this trap of just going off of one person's word, or just going off what they see, maybe might see on TV, the way a story is presented. It's based on what's presented, make a judgment call. Instead of, like the scriptures say, you can't blame before you examine the truth. You have to understand first before you can rebuke, right? But it's part of the law when you read Deuteronomy 13 and 14. You can just write them down. Deuteronomy 13 and 14. Link with verse 26. So Deuteronomy 13 and 14. Also, you can write down Deuteronomy 17 and verse 4. Deuteronomy 17 and 4. And then also Deuteronomy chapter 19 and verse 18. So those different scriptures will deal with different laws, right? As far as worshiping the host of heaven, someone telling you to worship other gods, dealing with witnesses, false witnesses. You'll see that wording about making a diligent inquisition, or making a diligent search. Make sure that the thing is certain. We see even diligence in the New Testament being mentioned as a fruit of the Spirit, right? Fruit of the Spirit, a character builder that we have to develop if we don't have it already, right? To be more Christ-like and develop our character, our Christ character. And then the verse I mentioned about the understanding first and rebuking, that's Ecclesiasticus chapter 11. You can just write down verses 7 and 8. Ecclesiasticus chapter 11, verses 7 to 8. Still going with verse 26. just not just good, but great, excellent practices to have, that you're not caught out there and made a fool. So back in First Esdras chapter 2, I'll read 26 again. It says, I have read the epistle which ye have sent unto me. Therefore I command to make diligent search, and it have been found that that city was from the beginning practicing against kings. 27, and the men therein were given to rebellion and war, and that mighty kings and fierce were in Jerusalem, who reigned and exacted tributes in Celesyria and Phoenicia. 28, and now therefore I have commanded to hinder those men from building the city, and heed to be taken that there be no more done in it. 29, that those wicked workers proceed no further to the annoyance of kings. 30, then King Artaxerxes, his letters being read, Thumas and Semelius, the scribe, and the rest that were in commission with them, removing in haste toward Jerusalem with a troop of horsemen and a multitude of people in battle array. Right, so they're bringing this message strong, right? They got even the army coming, right? Began to hinder the builders, and the building of the temple in Jerusalem ceased until the second year of the reign of Darius, the king of the Persians. Right, so they came with their army, and they came on the scene as we were building and said, "Halt! Hey, you guys can't build." Right, due to word from this Artaxerxes, the king. So, the heathen won, Israel 0. Right, they got the one up on us to prevent that progress from taking place. So sad, but we know when it comes to the Most High's will, in the end, it will always be done. Even if there are delays that take place, we know that this wouldn't be the end, and that we will continue to build, be able to build just a little bit later. And that's where this story is going to come in when we read in chapter 3. It's going to be the beginning of the story of leadership that we're going to get in the land that's going to resume the building again. As we read throughout First Esdras, we're going to get into that history and read other scriptures that link with that, as far as the time we stopped building, and then also the time that we would resume building again to finish the work that had already been started. For verse 26, which ones do you have? You want me to read all of them? It's just 3 verses. I'm asking which ones you have. I don't want to give you the ones you already have. Oh, you said all of them? No, I'm saying which ones do you have written down already? Okay, so I'll just read them all. Deuteronomy chapter 13 and verse 14. Deuteronomy chapter 17 and verse 4. And Deuteronomy chapter 19 and verse 18. What's that? You do say, you just say repeat them, that's all. Just say that. And for other folks that may have not heard too, to add on, we also read Ecclesiasticus chapter 11, verses 7 to 8. All those going with the First Esdras 2 and 26. Okay, so we've come to the end of this chapter, so we'll take a break here. So feel free to stretch your legs, get something to eat. Some obviously doesn't require heat. Get some sunshine on your face, right? And we'll reconvene Most High's will in a half an hour, which would be around 12:15. Go into First Esdras chapter 3. Go into the readings for that. So we'll see you for First Esdras chapter 3 in a half an hour. Shalom, and we'll talk to you.